the parties are going to give me a transcript of a telephone call that involves multiple parties. There may be a dispute between the parties as to what part of that call can actually be played for the jury. You're going to crystallize that dispute and highlight for me portions that the defense believes should come out and the state disagrees. At 2:15, I'm presumably going to have the state here, Mr. Victor telephonic, I think.
Hey, Judge, maybe we should have put this portion on the record, but Ms. Johnson's told me she does not want to be present for that hearing, so she waives her presence. So I'll be on the phone. Ms. Clark will be on the phone.
Okay. All right. So Ms. Johnson's not going to be here for that portion for that argument. And I'll note when we're on the record then that she's waived her presence at that point. You can confirm it as well. I'll have the transcript and we'll just figure out what I'm going to let in and what I'm not.
Judge, what number should I call, or is the court going to call me? Or?
I'm not calling you. Talk to Kim. You can call into us. She'll give you a number when she comes out that you can call into, and it'll come into the courtroom, and I'll be out here, and it'll be on the record. Okay, so we'll do that. We're dark Wednesday. It looks like, and this doesn't have to be on the record, but we'll put it on the record eventually, scheduling-wise, since we're now going to be dark by agreement on Wednesday, October 3rd, that the state will finish at some point next week. Whenever the state finishes, which is either projected to be either October 2nd or October 4th, will then likely break until October 15th, and then we'll start with whatever evidence the defense chooses to put on, if any, on October 15th. So we are going to go into October 15th. Okay. Anything else anybody needs to talk about off the record before we come back at 2:15?
No, Judge.
Okay. All right. I'll see everybody at 2:15. Okay. We're back on Ms. Johnson's case. Jury's not here, and I don't think we have Mr. Victor on the phone yet, do we?
I can right now.
Go ahead and call him. Let's get him on the line. And Ms. Andrews and Ms. Ramuno are here, and Detective Ramirez is here. Hi, Mr. Victor. This is Judge Kramer.
Hey, Judge.
We are on the record. Ms. Andrews, Ms. Ramuno are here. Detective Ramirez is here. And we're ready to talk about issues relating to the jail call with Elizabeth Johnson. Let me start by asking, what date was this call made on? It's not...
Who are you asking, Judge?
Anyone who can give me the correct answer.
Oh, okay.
I don't have that information.
The state is looking also. It's not on the transcript, I don't believe.
It is not, Your Honor.
I can put the general time frame, obviously, because she's in jail in Miami, but beyond that, I don't know.
Arrived on the 7th and the 9th.
Your Honor, it's sometime between December 31st and January 9th.
Okay, so it's
Sometime between December 31st and January 9th.
okay. Obviously, we need to get the exact date before we play this for the jury. And the context of this call is that why don't you tell me the context? Because we have various people appearing. The transcript has some unidentified people. Why don't we identify who all the participants are with the key on the front? Some of the participants are identified. Q is John Thompson, which is Detective Thompson, correct?
Yes.
And then Q1 Sergio, and is that Special Agent?
No, Your Honor, that is what's happening in this call is Tammy Smith, Jack Smith, and Elizabeth Johnson's grandfather, Robert Johnson, agreed to participate in a phone call by calling Elizabeth Johnson at the jail in Miami. This was monitored by KPHO.
Hang on one second. For Mr. Victor?
Yes.
I don't know if you can do it with your speaker or not, but you're bleeding through the sound, so you got to put it on mute, and that way your sound won't bleed into us, because it is right now, and it's distracting, and it may prevent you from being able to hear us. I don't know, but can you do that so we don't get your noise?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
And
What you left off with, this was monitored by KPHO.
this was monitored by KPHO. I believe, I'm not sure if it was their idea or whose idea it was, but they were a participant in this. Detective Thompson was notified that this was going to occur, so he was in a van with Sergio listening to this as it was occurring. So the recording is actually, that we have, is from the van listening in on this call to the jail in Miami.
Sergio is someone with the Tempe Police Department?
No, I believe they're with KPHO.
Okay, so with the knowledge of KPHO, Detective Thompson's listening in. Okay, so Q4 is Tammy Smith, Q6 is Jack Smith, Q7 it says man. That's actually Elizabeth Johnson's grandfather, is it not? Is it Robert Johnson, I think?
No, I believe Q7. And this is certainly something we intended on clearing up before presenting it to the jury.
I believe you're correct, Judge, that
Yes,
it is Q7's grandfather.
It is. And Q5 is somebody from KPHO.
Okay. Well, we probably need to identify Q5. Who are Qs 2 and 3, the man and man, generically?
People in the van. I believe that they are additionally people in the van.
So Q1, 2, and 3 are in the van, basically listening in?
Yes.
Judge, if I can clarify this for you a little bit, what had happened was actually Channel 5 did this interview. They recorded it at the Smith. They then brought it to Tempe PD, who then recorded it in a van. So the beginning recording isn't even part of the KPHO thing. The beginning of the recording is actually the KPHO people explaining to Detective Thompson, and I think it was Detective Duplessis, I think is also in there, explaining to them what happens with the call and when it started up and how to operate the recording. And then they did a separate recording of the KPHO recording, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. I guess my question is, are we really going to play that part for the jury? Is it to put it in context, and maybe can we just explain it and get right to the recording?
Yeah, we don't need to play that portion, Your Honor.
Okay, because I read that, and the first 2 pages, the discussion between the folks in the van, that's a problem. So it looks like the interview picks up essentially at page 3, right in the middle of Ms. Johnson answering. Actually, it's page 3 at the top. Tammy Smith is saying hello, and then Ms. Johnson starts saying what you were trying to say. I think that's the first time anyone who's not a van person appears on the transcript. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think what I'd like to do, unless somebody has a problem with it for some reason, is we should start the tape for the jury where we start at line 95 on page 3. And that starts the actual interview. And if you want to, I don't know if you even need to set it up and tell them about, and maybe there could be testimony from, I guess, Detective Thompson about how they came about it, and he can explain what you just explained. Okay, so if we start at page 3, line 95, then we have everyone identified. Tammy Smith. Q5 is someone from KPHO. We probably should identify that person for the jury individually, who it is. Then Q6 is Jack Smith. Q7 is Robert Johnson, who is Elizabeth Johnson's grandfather. And then A is Elizabeth Johnson. Okay. All right, so we've got that out of the way. It looks to me that the first dispute with respect to, well, let me step back one more time. Is the rest of what's appearing in here been agreed to by everybody to be played except for what you flagged for me, or is there some other things that you haven't flagged for me that you've agreed to remove already? You understand what I'm saying?
Well, we did have some discussion about trying to remove the recording of the Miami-Dade jail coming in. And I'm not sure, did we resolve that?
I think we decided
Charity,
we didn't need to.
Did we decide we were going to leave that in?
Well, we kind of came to the conclusion, I don't know that it's absolutely necessary to remove it, and then there are other portions of the context that we want and that do elicit the fact that she is in custody and in jail at the time. So I don't know if we need to do it or not. I don't think it's crucial.
I don't think so either, and I don't want you to go through the effort when I think it's of minimal value, since it will be explained to the jury, or that they will immediately understand that she's in custody at the time in Miami. And so hearing that recording in the background doesn't trouble me, and if someone was making an argument that it had to be out, I'd probably disagree with that. So let's not worry about that part. Okay, so let's get to what's in dispute. I think we start at page 7, is that correct?
Yes.
And we start with line 277, where Jack Smith is apparently making a semi-speech to Elizabeth Johnson, and I take it, Ms. Clark, you want that out?
Yes, Judge, and I think I don't believe your earlier question was answered completely. There are other sections that we have agreed with the state that will come out. In fact, even just prior to that, which kind of is a reason why we're requesting that this section of what the grandfather is saying comes out as well. On the page prior, on page 6, we've agreed with the state to take out portions. I believe the state agreed with lines 250 to 252, if I'm correct, where the grandfather says that I'm sick to my stomach because I'm really having a hard time believing you in this.
Okay, slow down, because this is being we're taking this down, and you keep referring to the grandfather. This is Jack Smith doing the talking here.
Sorry, you're right, Jack Smith. I apologize.
Okay, so I will tell you that my note, and I've had about 5 minutes before I came in here to review this. My first note on page 7 was, how is this different from previous page? If all that stuff was going to come in with Jack Smith giving a big, long speech about her status, how is what's on page 7 any different? In fact, I think things said the previous page are not a lot more of an issue, and I don't see too much relevance in Jack Smith's speech about what he thinks is important to Elizabeth Johnson.
Right. Well, Your Honor, on the previous page, page 6, he talks about her going to jail for the rest of her life, and that's the reason why we are in agreement with taking that section out.
Right.
In this section on page 7, he's just talking about her taking a fall for what she's done, and I think it's important to the context of the whole conversation and the context of the relationship between all these parties.
Well, but Jack Smith telling her, there's some 403 issue there with Jack Smith's opinion that she's about to take a big fall. I have some concerns about that. The rest of his statements, I've never told you a lie, and I told you one day you'll face this. And I guess it's got some limited relevance, but I just worry about Jack Smith's speech. He is also not a co-conspirator, so...
Your Honor, that's actually incorrect. A co-conspirator can be charged or uncharged. It's our position he is a co-conspirator. The law specifically allows statements of charged or uncharged co-conspirators, and the way this is charged in this case, there is no named co-conspirator in the indictment.
Okay.
Not only is Jack Smith a co-conspirator, but anybody else she might have conspired with could be a co-conspirator in this case, such as a couple in a park or Janet Morris.
Okay. Ms. Clark, tell me why you want that portion out, and is it the whole portion or just some specific portion?
Well, Judge, I think Elisa actually kind of hit it on the head there. I'm talking about context here, and I think you've alluded to that as well. we're agreeing to take out the entire part prior to this where Jack is speaking about Elizabeth going to jail for the rest of her life. And we've agreed that that needs to come out. This section is just a continuation of that conversation, and his saying you're going to take a very big fall for this is related back to that previous section. There is no context outside of that other section. To put this in is putting it in completely out of context because we've already removed the section prior to it. And there isn't much relevance to it, especially when you take out that prior section. So our main concern here is being worried about the baby because I don't believe you. Or if you're telling the truth, you're going to take a very big fall for this. That's relating back to his prior statement.
Well, it does certainly relate back to the page before. I think this particular paragraph's got a real limited amount of relevance because Jack Smith's not really talking about, there's not a lot of co-conspirator talk happening here. Assuming he's an unindicted co-conspirator and it comes in, I just don't like the paragraph. And I don't think it adds anything in terms of relevance to the discussion. It doesn't really qualify or explain the future exchange either, such that we need it. So I want to take out that paragraph. So I'm going to sustain the objection, and we're taking out 277 to 281. Okay, there's another.
Your Honor, we'll take out up to 283 because then otherwise she's just saying yeah out of nowhere.
I agree.
Judge, I'd just like the record to be clear that we don't agree that Jack Smith is an unindicted co-conspirator. I mean, there's never been any such finding. The issue hasn't come up. The court hasn't made a ruling. I don't know if we're going to need to make that ruling today or at any time, but I don't want the record to reflect that we agree with that.
I note there has not been a ruling on that, and I'm not intending on making one today. So I note your position. Okay. Page 7. And by the way, Ms. Johnson has waived her presence for today, correct?
That is correct, Judge.
Okay. So we have just one line at the bottom of page 7. That's a KPHO person making a statement, correct?
Correct.
I'm not excited about having the KPHO guy's statement. I know it's, in fact, that's not a question, it's a statement. Saying that you can't just hand over a baby like you would hand over your old pair of clothing. I'm not particularly excited about that. It puts into context, of course, the statement made on the next page, but...
Yeah, it's the state's position that under Rule 106 it's admissible because it provides context to her answer up on the next page. And in this part of the conversation, they're trying essentially to talk some sense into her about what she's saying, and I think it's important.
Judge, I don't think it puts into context, and it's not necessary to put in context what the next page is. In fact, the part where Elizabeth says, I understand, I know what you're referencing it to, but, and I mean, we can take that person out if we take out the Channel 5 person, which is additionally hearsay, but it was a private adoption, and I really understand that's how it works, which relates back to Tammy speaking prior to that about it not being a private adoption, and everyone commending her Elizabeth saying everyone commended her prior to what she was doing when she was going to give Gabriel to Tammy. That statement's not necessary for the context. It's hearsay. It's extremely prejudicial. It's not relevant either.
Okay. Here's what I think. I agree with the defense that really Elizabeth, I think, on page 8 is answering Tammy Smith at the bottom, saying, but it's not a private adoption that, and I'm at the bottom of page 7, and Elizabeth says, it is. That's how it works. That comment at the bottom is simply a comment that I don't think Elizabeth is responding to. I don't think it's hearsay because I don't think the state's offering it for the truth of the matter asserted, but really for 403 purposes it almost comes out that way, where this person's making the comment. I really do think it adds no context. In fact, it's just a comment by the Channel 5 person, and I think it ought to come out. Without that, I think it flows actually better from Tammy Smith to Elizabeth. So 313 through 315 are coming out on page 7. Okay, the next one I think we have is page 9. The grandfather, Robert Johnson, talking about the car, where it was found.
Judges, as we discussed in chambers, the issue with this is it's partially impeachment testimony. I mean, it's impeachment here. It's being offered for the truth of the matter, which, you know, to me, it's hearsay. And additionally, it's not relevant. And there is no tape that's going to be presented to the jury. So it leaves the jury wondering, what is this tape of other statements out there that are contradictory? I think that, you know, based on hearsay, based on not being relevant, and additionally based on being prejudicial, I don't see that it should come in.
Here's my concern. Robert Johnson's making statements about what he thinks Elizabeth Johnson said, statements made on tape, or she said something. I'm worried about that Robert Johnson's doing the questioning.
Your Honor, it's my memory that she said it to Robert Johnson. It's his car. He was looking for the car, and she told him it was in a garage.
And we have no objection to taking out the part about it being on tape.
Well, are you going to introduce some testimony, or do you have something where she says it's in a garage? Because if you don't, and we just have Robert Johnson saying you said it in a garage, I don't want to go there, especially because we're impeaching on, I wouldn't call it a collateral issue, but pretty close to a collateral issue, the car. I understand the state's arguing her whole story, the impeachment of everything she's telling about what happened is relevant, and I generally agree with that. But now we're going to Robert Johnson impeaching her about the car. We're starting to move away from squarely relevant from my perspective. Okay, hold on for 1 second while we're changing paper. Ms. Clark, while we're changing paper, make sure you slow down because we're flying.
You're flying, and I don't have a copy of what you're referring to, and it's...
Do we have another copy here so you can see what we're talking about? Okay, go ahead and get it. We're going to hold on. We're making it very difficult to transcribe this by the speed at which we're all moving, and we need to slow down. So Ms. Andrews is getting a copy of this, so we're waiting for a moment.
It's going to be lengthy. I thought it was just going to be like 15 minutes.
We're about halfway through. There's 3 more after this, I think. Theoretically, I have a pretty good idea, but I don't know. Page 9, and we're talking about lines 382 through 392. Okay. All right, so we're back on the record. Let's all make a commitment to slowing down. All right. So I've expressed some concern, and let me talk to the state about the whole, the potential confusion factor and the lack of relevance of Robert Johnson cross-examining Elizabeth Johnson on her previous statements regarding where she put the car. As I say that, I'm less convinced of the relevance of that and more worried about the 403.
And Your Honor, where I believe it comes into context, and I don't have the transcript with me to look at, is Robert Johnson visited her in jail, and she told him that, and he relayed that information to the police because they were trying to figure out at one point in time where the car was. And so that's why I believe we have that Robert Johnson says that it's on a recording, that it's in the garage because of a conversation he had with Elizabeth Johnson that was recorded. We weren't intending to play that recording.
Well, but he didn't see her in Florida.
He did not, no.
Okay, so was this a conversation he had later or before with her?
Well, that's a good point.
So
then maybe it was on the telephone. I can't recall at the moment. I do recall there's information Elizabeth Johnson gave to Robert Johnson that his car was safe in a garage. And that's what he's referring to.
Not all impeachment obviously is going to be relevant. That's why we have 404. And I understand here it's part of her story, and to the extent she's inconsistent with the story, it quite possibly could be fair game. But because of the 403 possibilities of it's her grandfather who's referencing a recording that's not going to come in here, And the 403 of we got you on tape with both of those, there's, again, the car in the garage is not that big of a deal because they go on and talk about it again. So he questions her at length about the car. So we're not giving up on the car here, just this sequence. Let's take out, I just don't like the 382 to 392 sequence. So we're going to take that out on page...
Judge, I don't know that we need to take out the 382.
We don't.
But the 384.
Correct.
Okay.
It's 384 to 393 comes out on page 9. Okay, the next one, we go forward to, let everybody get there, page 22. And I think we're talking about line 977 and 978. I don't, and Ms. Clark, you can tell me, why would that come out or need to come out?
Judge, again, this is a context issue. This is Tammy continuing her statement from 959 to 961, and I realize you don't have this information, but we have agreed with the state to take out this portion where Tammy says, so it's not a kidnapping, but very soon it will be a homicide if they don't have a body. And she's continuing on down here later on. It's the continuation of this conversation, explaining that it's not a homicide. It's a homicide unless they have to look at his body. They have to look at his body to see that he's alive and well and breathing. So given the context, this will be completely taken out of context without 959 through 961, which I don't see how that can come in, and the state's already agreed that doesn't come in. We're not dealing with a homicide, and we're not, we're trying to focus the jury away from this as a homicide.
I disagree because I think the context is established by Tammy Smith saying, well, let's start at 971. Elizabeth Johnson says her story's been verified, and then Tammy Smith says, I know, but they have to verify that the baby's alive, is what she's saying. I don't think it does necessarily relate back to the 959, line 959 statements that came out. I don't think it goes back to the homicide. I think it fairly is Tammy Smith responding right there to Elizabeth Johnson saying my story's been verified, and Tammy Smith says they have to look at his body in order to verify, is what she's saying. And they have to look at his body to see that he's alive and well and breathing, to verify your story. That's what she's talking about.
Well, Judge, maybe to be fair then we need to take out that section of Elizabeth speaking, because she's responding to Elizabeth, or to Tammy, saying it's not a kidnapping, it's going to be a homicide if they don't have his body. Her response is, I gave him away. There is no body. I gave him away, and my story's been verified. She's responding to Tammy's statement about it being a homicide, and Tammy is responding again, saying, yes, but because they don't have a body, I think it is all context into this homicide. Elizabeth is trying to explain to Tammy why it shouldn't be a homicide, while Tammy is trying to explain to Elizabeth why it should be a homicide.
But I don't think the jury needs all that context to understand what Elizabeth Johnson is saying there. And we could have started with just a statement of her saying, I gave him away and my story's already been verified, and the jury will know exactly what she's talking about. And so I don't think we need the context, or otherwise it's unfair to not have the context that leads up to that discussion, because it goes into, in my view, another overarching topic. That is, she said she gave the baby away, and she says the story's been verified. It doesn't matter, in my view, what led up to that statement in terms of putting it into fair context for the jury. So I think 977 and 78 can come in. All right, next page. Page 23, and the request is Tammy Smith, lines 987 right at the top to 990. Let me read this again. Okay, I don't see a whole lot of mischief here compared with other statements. Ms. Clark, is this the same reason because of the lack of context?
Well, that was one of the reasons, Judge, but additionally, Tammy's making a statement on behalf of Detective Ramirez that I don't know is wholly accurate, saying that this, and in fact it's not wholly accurate, saying that this will all go away if they find Gabriel alive and breathing. Given the charges that she has, that's not even factual. If he's found alive and breathing, as we've discussed before, where he's found and where he is, and considering we're asking the jury not to focus on his whereabouts and whether or not that pertains to any elements of the crime, I think this clearly should come out. Whether he's found alive and breathing has no relevance as to whether or not this entire thing goes away. And her saying that the detective is saying, so long as the baby's found alive and breathing, this all goes away, I think it creates some prejudice, especially given the instructions we've already discussed regarding Gabriel's whereabouts not being relevant.
I actually think the state might want this out because it's a suggestion by Tammy Smith inaccurately that if the baby shows up, everything's fine. I don't think the state thinks that that would have been the case.
I don't read this as saying that this is all going to go away. It's saying that this can be over with. They're looking for this baby. If they can find where he is, then this whole ordeal will be over. Not that charges are going to go away.
Yeah, I think Tammy Smith thinks that everything's fine, meaning you're not going to have any problems. I take it as an inaccurate, shockingly, statement by Tammy Smith that Detective Ramirez is going to say, if I know where the baby is, it's all over, meaning we don't have any need for you, Elizabeth. And that, I don't think, was ever the position that Detective Ramirez would have taken under the circumstances. And so I'm worried about this. It's basically a legal opinion, in part, by Tammy Smith, and I think it can be confusing. And so I think it should come out.
The only problem we have then is that Elizabeth's answer at 992, she's putting it on the police department to find him at that point. And there's absolutely no context to that statement then, because the previous statement is...
I think that's okay. And maybe this is a little bit of a bailout. I will tell you there's lots of statements that arguably don't have context that are made in this tape. Okay.
Actually, now that I look at the previous statement, I think we're fine.
Okay, so page 23, lines 987 through 990 come out. Okay, last one. Page 26. Again, it's the Channel 5 person, and this is line 1147 through 1149. Do you know how serious that looks against you? I'm obviously very hesitant to have the comments of the media saying, do you know how serious this is?
And Judge, I think there may have been, I don't know if we failed to put this into our email to Angela and to the state about lines 1141 through 1143, which is the beginning of the Channel 5 statement. He says, but do you understand how serious this is because of what Tammy is telling you that right now because you said you killed your son? And again, this relates to his conversation later and prior about this being a homicide. He's talking about it being serious for that reason. And as you said, it's Channel 5, and his comments as to how serious this is, I think, are irrelevant and prejudicial.
Well, I think there's some big-time relevance, though, in Elizabeth Johnson's answer at 1145. I wanted him to leave me alone. So...
Well, I think we would be okay with taking out the part, his statement about the Channel 5 statement about how serious it is in both of those. That's our main concern. And leaving some of the rest of it for context.
Okay, so what are you proposing to take out specifically? Give me the line numbers.
I think we could take out 1141 going into the very first word of 1142. And then, let's see, 1142 1147 through 1149. I don't know if you can take out just a portion of that without it sounding completely strange. But I don't know that that entire portion is necessary if you have the remainder of 1142 through 1143 for context.
Okay, what does the state think?
Okay, so the proposal is to take out in line 1141, but do you understand how serious this is because of what Tammy is telling you?
Correct.
So we have no objection to that.
Okay, so 1141, that line will come out, and it will begin with that right now because you said you killed your son because you don't know where he is, stays in. And then the answer to 1145 stays in. The next issue is 1147.
And I forget what the proposal was on that.
I don't know if there's a way to just take out the portion where he's talking, where the Channel 5 is speaking about how serious it is against her without the rest of it being out of context. And then I think that would bring us into the very first three words of 1151 of Elizabeth's response to make it sound like it fits, where he says, so Channel 5 says, I understand, but hear me out. You send a text message that said you killed your son. You are telling us now you don't know where he is. Do you know how serious that looks against you? I suppose we could just cut out after the comma on 1149, the do you know how serious that looks against you, and then on 1151, the beginning of Elizabeth's reply that says, I really don't.
We have no objection to that.
The state's okay with that. So we're taking out part of line 1149, the clause, do you know how serious that looks against you? And then we're taking out on line 1151, Elizabeth Johnson's statement, quote, I really don't. And then the tape will start with you know. Is that correct?
The defense agrees with that.
And the state, I think, is indicating it agrees also. Okay. That's all I have. Is there anything else from anybody's perspective that we need to talk about on this?
Not from the state.
No, Judge, not from the defense.
Okay. All right. Then I think we're good. We'll pick up again. Who are we calling first on Monday?
Analise Urias.
Okay. All right. So we'll pick up again Monday at 10:30, and I'll see everybody then.
Okay, have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Andrews, you may proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. Would you please tell us your full name?
Analise Urias.
And Analise, don't tell me your address, but where do you currently live? What city and state?
San Antonio, Texas.
Were you living in San Antonio, Texas in December of 2009?
Yes.
And you don't need to tell me exactly where you work, but what do you do for a living?
I work in the fast food industry.
Now, back in December of 2009, when you were living in San Antonio, Texas, who did you live with at that time?
My boyfriend and his mother.
And what is your boyfriend's name?
Christopher Carrion.
And what is his mother's name?
Patricia de la Rosa.
And during some time period where you were living with your boyfriend and his mother, did his brother ever live there as well?
Yes, he did.
And what's his brother's name?
Daniel de la Rosa.
While you were living with your boyfriend and his mother and your boyfriend's brother, what type of telephone did you have?
Me and my boyfriend shared a phone. Cell phone.
It was a cell phone?
Yes.
And so you and your boyfriend used the same phone?
Yes.
And whose name was the phone under? Who paid the bill?
His mother, Patricia.
So it would have been under Patricia de la Rosa?
Yes.
Did you have your name listed in a plan somehow?
Not at the time.
And was it a shared plan, or did you just all use the same phone number?
It was a shared plan.
And so there was one plan with different phone numbers?
Yes.
And then you and your boyfriend had the same phone number?
Yes. We shared a phone at the time.
Now, back in December of 2009, did you have a Craigslist ad?
Yes.
What was that for?
For babysitting, I used to do babysitting.
Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about, in case anybody's not familiar with how Craigslist works, tell us about how you placed that ad.
Basically, you just sign up with your email and your phone number, and you can put ads for stuff for sale, from cars to like computers, anything that you're not using you can place for sale. It also has a section for babysitting, pets. It's just like a community website where you can buy things and get services from. So I signed up for that and placed the ad for babysitting.
And generally, what did your ad say about babysitting?
Basically said that I babysit, that I'm available anytime, any days, and that's about it. And I had my number for contact.
And how old are you today?
21.
And so about how old were you in December of 2009?
I think I had just turned 18.
So back during that time, around December 21st of 2009, did you receive a phone call in response to that ad?
Yes.
And when you received that phone call, did the person identify themselves to you?
Yes.
And how did the person identify themselves?
As Elizabeth?
And so you talked to someone named Elizabeth?
Yes.
Did Elizabeth tell you her last name?
No.
And when you talked to Elizabeth on the phone on that day, what conversation did you have with her?
She basically said that she needed a babysitter for the following day so she can look for work because she had just moved here. Or not here. She had just moved to San Antonio.
And did she tell you at the time where she had moved from?
No.
And so did you agree to babysit the next day?
Yes, I did.
Where was it that she wanted you to babysit?
The Homegate studio.
And is that also in San Antonio, Texas?
Yes.
So did you end up then going to the Homegate?
Yes.
And how did you get there?
I got there on the bus. The city bus.
Did you go by yourself?
No, my boyfriend went with me.
Okay, and why did he go with you?
Because I didn't know how to take the bus, and he did. So he went all the way with me to show me how to get there.
And that's very nice.
Yeah.
When you got to the Homegate Hotel, did your boyfriend go with you inside the hotel?
No, he stayed on the bus and went back around.
As you're sitting here today, do you recall what room number you met with Elizabeth?
I don't recall the room number.
Do you recall talking to some police officers back in December 2009 and January of 2010?
Yes.
And if you had told them the room number was 150, would that be correct?
That would be correct. I just don't remember now.
And do you remember approximately what time of day it was that you arrived at the hotel?
It was between 11:30 and 12 p.m.
During the time period after you had talked to Elizabeth on the phone and before you arrived at the hotel, did you have any communication with her?
Yes.
And what type of communication did you have with her?
We were texting back and forth while I was on my way there.
And what were you texting about?
I was basically just telling her that I was running late and why the bus was running late.
And then eventually you arrived at the home gate and you went into room 150 without your boyfriend.
Yes.
What happened when you met Elizabeth?
She was kind of mad because I was late.
And when you say she was mad at you because you were late, how did you know she was mad?
It's obvious by someone's facial expressions and a tone of voice.
And after you talked to her first, what conversation did you have after you talked about being late?
She told me to come in, and then she showed me around more or less the hotel room.
Did she give you instructions on taking care of Gabriel?
Yes, she told me that he would be hungry and within the next hour, so I should feed him.
And did she show you around where you could find the food and all those things?
Yes.
And then I assume she left at some point.
Yes.
How long were you together with her before she left?
Not even 2 minutes, I would say.
And where was Gabriel when you entered the room?
I don't remember. I don't remember exactly where he was. I don't want to say one thing and then that's not true.
Okay. But he was in the room?
He was in the room, yes.
And he was safe?
Mm-hmm.
In the room?
Yes.
Is that yes?
Yes, sorry.
And so you took care of Gabriel. How long did you take care of him?
About 2 to 2.5 hours, no longer than that.
And what types of things did you and Gabriel do?
I fed him, played with him, held him, was talking to him, which he didn't understand, obviously. That's pretty much it.
And while you were there with Gabriel, did you have any communication with Elizabeth?
Yes.
And what type of communication did you have with her?
She basically texted me and apologized for being short.
And did she ask how the baby was?
Yes.
At some point in time, did Elizabeth return to the hotel?
Yes.
Now, during your entire time with her, did she ever give you her last name?
No.
And did she ever tell you where she was from?
I believe when she came back, she told me she was from Arizona.
During the time after she came back, did she pay you for your services?
Yes.
How much did she pay you?
$40.
And did you happen to see where she got the money from or how much money she had with her?
She got it from her wallet, but I didn't see anything. I mean, I didn't look inside.
And while you were there in the hotel with Elizabeth, did you hear her, did you see her meet with anybody else?
No.
Did you ever hear her talk to anybody else?
On the phone, yes.
And when she talked on the phone, what type of phone was she on? Was she on the hotel phone, a cell phone,
Cell
or
phone?
something else?
I believe it was a cell phone.
Cell phone.
Yes.
Did she make the call or did she receive it?
She received the call.
And did you hear the conversation?
I didn't hear the conversation. No, I didn't. I just heard someone on the other line, someone from the other side yelling. I can hear him yelling through the phone.
Okay, so you could hear yelling. Do you know if that was a male or female voice you heard?
A female voice.
Now, after that, did Elizabeth tell you what that conversation was about?
She told me it was her grandmother getting mad at her because her baby's father wanted to know where they were at. And her grandmother was basically in the middle, and she didn't know if she should tell him or not.
And then did Elizabeth tell you any more information about the baby's father?
No, all she told me was that they were in a custody battle.
And did she tell you any further information about the custody battle?
No.
After this conversation, how much time did you spend with Elizabeth after she returned, after you watched Gabriel?
Maybe 5 minutes.
After this conversation, did you make any agreements with her about future babysitting?
No agreements. All I told her was that if she ever needed me to call me.
And did she ever call you again?
No.
At some point in time, were you contacted by the police?
Yes.
And prior to the police contacting you personally, did you learn that the police had contacted your family, your boyfriend?
Yes.
And were you present when the police contacted your family and your boyfriend?
No, I wasn't.
And at some point in time, you said you had contact with the police. Did you ever contact the police on your own?
I had called the news station. I don't think it was the police, but it was the news station because I had seen the picture of him, of Gabriel.
So you contacted the news station because you saw the picture of Gabriel.
Yes.
Where did you see that?
On Fox 29 News, I believe.
Was that before you had contact with the police or after?
Before.
So you saw his picture and you contacted the news media?
Yes.
Did you actually talk to anybody?
No, they had me on hold for a while, so I just hung up.
You may.
Analise, I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit number 28. Do you recognize some photos in that exhibit?
Yes.
And what do you recognize those photos as?
Me telling her what time the bus was coming.
Okay. Are those the text messages you talked about before?
Yes.
And this name here, Annalisa, is that you?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Cross-examination, Mr.
No question, Judge. Thank you.
Okay, does the jury have any questions for Ms. Urias before we let her go? Doesn't look like it. May this witness be excused, Ms. Andrews?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Victor?
Yes, Judge.
You may step down. Thank you. Watch your step going down, and the state may call its next witness.
The state calls Luis Chavez.
Okay, let's go ahead and get Ms. Chavez. Ms. Ramuno, you may proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Chavez, would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Okay. My name is Luis Chavez. I am a Mexican-born individual. I came to the United States in 1981. I became a citizen of the United States in 1996. Actually, at this time, I'm working at Tornado Bus Company in San Antonio. I'm the assistant manager in that office. I guess that's what I can say about myself.
And Mr. Chavez, the Tornado Bus Company, does your wife work there as well?
She's my manager.
Okay.
I am her assistant.
All right. And were you working there back in December of 2009?
Yes, I was there.
How long have you been working for the Tornado Bus Company?
For 18 years.
Now, on that date, was your grandson working as well?
Yes, he started working with the company 4 years ago.
Okay, and what is his name?
His name is David Lopez. We call him David.
Okay. And about how old was he back at that time?
18 years old.
All right. Now, in December of 2009, do you recall specifically working on the date of December 27th, 2009?
Yes, I was working there.
And at that time, did a young lady come in and purchase a bus ticket from your company?
Yes, she was, but I wasn't there at that moment.
You did not sell her the ticket yourself, is that correct?
No, I didn't.
Your grandson did?
Yes, he did.
And is there a reason why he handled that ticket with her?
Excuse me?
Is there a reason why he sold her the ticket as opposed to somebody else?
Well, he had another co-worker named Gavino Gonzalez. He was there, and when he sees an Anglo, he refuses to sell ticket because he doesn't know what I might ask him, and he is not going to have the right answer. So he turned to my grandson.
Okay. And what was the other employee's name? Can you say his last name again?
Gavino Gonzalez.
Gavino Gonzalez. Okay, Mr. Gonzalez, does he speak English?
Not at all.
Okay. Does your grandson?
He does.
All right.
He was born in San Antonio.
Okay. So your grandson handled that transaction because of his
most of the
English
time.
skills. Okay. And tell us a little bit about the Tornado Bus Company. Where is it located in San Antonio?
Okay. This company was founded back in the 80s, like 81 or so, by members of my wife's family, just with one van in that time. Okay. But the two brothers who were driving the van all the way from Houston, Texas to Matehuala, San Luis Potosí.
Houston, Texas to?
Houston, Texas.
To?
Yes.
To where?
To Matehuala, San Luis Potosí, Mexico. And it has been growing, I guess I can say, rapidly. In those times, they were acquiring more and more vans. It was like 14 in I guess in 2 years' time, they got like 14 vans. And then the regulations changed that they didn't want to have vans, so they start acquiring buses, used buses.
Okay, and what road is it located on?
In San Antonio, we are located on Highway 35, 7914 Highway 35.
And what type of population does your bus company typically service?
Yeah, mostly Hispanic people.
And you mentioned earlier that one of the employees refuses to work with Anglos. What does Anglo mean?
Excuse me?
What does Anglo mean?
For us, means we say white people.
Okay. And so primarily then the clientele that you service are Spanish-speaking clientele?
Yes, most of the time.
Okay. So
well, still we serve all kinds of persons. It doesn't matter the color at all.
now at some point, actually, may I approach the exhibit here, Your Honor?
You may.
At some point, did the FBI or the police come to your company?
Yeah, they came over the next day when when this person from the FBI, it was Mr. Flores who came.
Okay, Special Agent Flores?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and when Special Agent Flores came, did he come with another special agent as well?
I remember him. That was Hector. I don't remember.
Special Agent Morales? Does that sound familiar?
I just don't remember the last name.
Okay, his first name was Hector?
Yes.
And when they came, did they show you a photograph of a woman?
They had a pamphlet on their hands, the colored pamphlet that showed me the woman.
All right. And when you saw the photograph of that woman, did you recognize her?
Yeah, because they were asking for that girl, and I recognized her immediately.
Okay. And how did you recognize her?
Well, it's something easily to remember because of the Hispanic people. We see so many that we might not remember what about the Hispanic people might have come. But if it is an Anglo, we might remember easily.
Okay. And did you recognize her from being in the bus depot? Did you see her at the bus depot?
I saw her when I came to the office.
Okay. When you came to the office that morning, that's when you saw her?
Yes.
Okay. And did the special agents ask you to look up her ticket and the roster of the passengers on the bus that day?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And were you able to locate the ticket that had been sold to that woman and her name on the roster?
Oh, it was not a difficult task because we kept a record for every day and kept it for 5 years. So it was just one day ahead. So.
And did you give them that information?
Yeah, they requested to keep a copy of the original ticket.
And are those records that you always keep as part of your business?
Yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm showing you what's marked as Exhibit 132. Do you recognize that document?
Of course.
And what is that?
That's a copy of the ticket we sold to Elizabeth Jones.
Okay. And you said that it was sold to somebody by the name of Elizabeth Jones?
Yeah, that's what she said.
All right. And I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 133. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, I do.
And what is that document?
That is the record that we keep for the passengers we sell in handwriting.
And does that document contain a record of the ticket that was sold to an Elizabeth Jones?
Yes.
The state moves to enter into evidence Exhibit 132 or 133 at this time.
Any objection?
No objection.
Exhibits 132 and 133 are admitted.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
You may.
Mr. Chavez, I've already shown this to you. This is Exhibit 132. And is this the ticket that was sold that day to the woman in the photograph that you saw?
Yes.
Okay. And I just want to be able to explain to the jury what these different things mean on the ticket since they're written in Spanish. Okay?
Yes.
The first line, what does this mean?
Name.
Okay, and underneath here is something printed. Is that printed by a computer?
Well, it is because of the problems with the computers that the printers don't go exactly where they should be, but under nombre, which means name, should be the name of the passenger.
Okay, and here it states Elizabeth Jones?
Yes.
Okay, and then this word here,
Destination.
what does that? Destination. And does this line refer to what the destination of this ticket was?
Yes.
Okay, and that is San Antonio, Texas to Fort Lauderdale, Florida?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and then the next line, what does this mean?
Date.
Date. And this word here?
That's the ticket.
Okay.
Ticket number.
Ticket, and then this number here is the ticket number?
Yeah, which is at the bottom part.
Which is here as well. Okay, and that's 266022?
Yes.
And then this here, what does this mean?
That's the date when it was sold.
Okay. Okay, and that's 12/27 of 2009?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then there's another word here that you can't really read.
Well, it's that is not in those times, and it's still well. Right now, it is a little different because we have changed the software. In that time, it's supposed to be who made the ticket, but when we never did.
Okay, so it just contains a date?
Yeah, there's a date. That's the same line as the date when the ticket was made.
Okay. And then the next line here, what does this mean?
Well, when it says under the ticket, it is still part of the same language
Okay,
as a
so
second line.
This word here, corrida, is supposed to be part of
yes,
this line
it's
up
part
here?
of that
okay.
line.
And what does corrida mean?
That route.
That route, okay.
Yes,
and
route.
is that a route number that's listed
Yeah,
there?
just like in planes, when they call it flight, that would be ours.
Okay. And this would be 930A?
938.
All right. And then the next word, what is that word?
After 9:30?
Yes.
That's the time, that's hour.
Okay, the hour, is that the hour that the...
At 12 noon. In connection at 187B.
And a connection at 187B, is that the location where the connection takes place?
No, that's another route that they start in Houston, Texas.
Okay, so 187B refers to the route that
Connects
would be
to the route 187B
in Houston.
in Houston.
Okay, and at that hour is at 7 p.m.
7 p.m., which is almost most of the times is at that time.
Okay. All right, and then the next line here, what does this mean?
That's the price
Okay.
she paid, and on the written part which is over the price belongs to the upper.
This here?
Yeah, that belongs to the upper.
That belongs to the line previous?
Yeah.
Okay, and what does that line mean?
That is the seat.
The seat number?
Seat number 21.
Seat number 21, and
that
then
was
does
on the
this...
San Antonio bus, and then the connection seat on the 21 on the road or 187B.
Okay, the Houston connection?
Yes.
Okay.
She was getting the same seat.
Okay, and then I believe you've already talked about this, but this is the price that
Yeah,
was paid
the
for the
price
ticket?
goes for the
$180?
price. Yes, ma'am.
And then this here you said is the list of passengers?
Yes.
All right, and on this list of passengers up here, does this indicate this December 27th of 2009?
Yes.
Okay, and is it listed by ticket number?
Ticket numbers?
As well as name?
Yes.
Destination?
Yes.
And the cost?
And the
ticket.
cost, the price.
Okay, and here at the entry that's indicating ticket number 266022, that is for Elizabeth Jones?
Yes.
To Fort Lauderdale, Florida?
Yes.
For $180?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, was the bus delayed that day?
It was delayed 1 hour.
Okay, and so the bus was supposed to leave at noon?
That's what we always say to our customers, because sometimes it gets around that time. In fact, people get there 1 hour in advance at 11.
Okay. And what time did the bus actually leave that day, if you remember?
Around 1.
Around 1 o'clock?
Yes.
And the person that you identified in the photograph, do you see her in the courtroom here today?
Let's see. Yeah, yes. It's the pink blouse.
And I believe you pointed in that direction?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, would the record please reflect this witness has identified the defendant?
Just so reflect.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, cross-examination.
Morning, Mr. Chavez. How are you today?
I am fine, thank you, sir.
What time did you arrive, if you recall, at the Tornado bus station on that day, the 27th of December, 2009?
Around 11.
Around 11? Is that what time your shift normally begins?
No, well, I don't have a time to get to work. Since I am the assistant manager and my wife is a manager, we come whenever we can because we have some other things to do.
And the woman who you just identified, wearing the blouse at the table,
yes,
named Elizabeth, do you know what time she arrived at the bus station that day?
Well, later on when we asked the two persons who who were managing the selling of the ticket, they said that she arrived around 10.
Around 10 o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
And who was it who gave that information?
Who was my son, David.
Your son?
My grandson.
Your grandson, the one who speaks English?
Yes.
He deals with the English speakers when they come in to buy the ticket?
Yeah, on the telephone and in person.
So then the information that you have is that this woman, Elizabeth, arrived at the Tornado bus station on the 27th of December, 2009, about 10 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay. And what time did she buy the ticket, if you know? Was that also around 10?
That's what they said, that they saw the ticket around that time.
10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then would it be accurate to say that she likely arrived at the bus station on that day about 10 o'clock in the
yes,
morning and then bought the ticket on that day about 10 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, sir.
And the bus was scheduled to leave about noon?
About 12 noon.
And it actually left about an hour late?
Yes, sir.
And did something call your attention to Elizabeth while she was at the bus station?
I just didn't want to say, but the beauty. She was there and just caught my attention that she was so calm.
Okay, so a couple of things. First, you noticed that she was attractive, right?
Yes.
And that's why you sort of took note when you saw her?
I guess I can say yes.
I don't blame you for that. So you noticed that she was attractive, and so you looked at her and you noticed her, and you remember that on that day, right?
Yes, sir.
Was she sitting with anybody?
No.
There was no baby?
She was sitting alone.
She was alone, right?
Yes.
And there was no baby, right?
No, no baby.
If there had been a baby, you would have noticed that next to her, right?
Yes, I would.
And then you saw her sitting, was it on a bench?
It was a couch. It's a couch that we have there.
A couch?
Couch.
Okay, and she was sitting there by herself?
By herself.
Was she reading anything?
No.
Was she doing anything in particular other than just sitting there?
No, it was just calm.
And did you think that was...
Speaking with no one.
Speaking with no one. Did you think that was a little strange?
It is sometimes, but not so much. Because there are people who don't want to speak with anybody. Sometimes there are people who gets there to speak with them, and people don't like them. So I guess it's understandable. Okay. She doesn't want to speak.
And then did you see her board the bus? And that would have been maybe somewhere between 12:30 and 1?
Around 1.
About 1 o'clock?
Yes.
And did you actually witness her board the bus?
From inside.
From inside?
Yes, because they will have very wide windows to look at the bus when it's parked at the front.
So then you were able to observe her from 11 o'clock when you arrived till about 1 o'clock when she got on the bus. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did she ever leave the Tornado bus station at any time?
No.
Did she ever have a baby with her at any time?
No.
And then she got on the bus without a baby, right?
Yes.
And then the bus drove away, right?
Yes, sir.
Can I have a moment, Judge?
You may.
No further questions, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Very briefly. Mr. Chavez, did the passengers know that the bus was going to be late that day?
We always tell them how far or how late it is, just by more or less, because we didn't have any GPS or some of those things that at this time we have.
Okay, so you as the employees of the bus station knew that the bus was going to be arriving late that day, is that correct?
Yes.
And you told the passengers that?
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions, thank you.
Thank you. Does the jury have any questions for Mr. Chavez before we let him go? We do have a question, so sit tight. Mr. Chavez, I'm going to ask you a question, but really the jury's asking you, so if you could give them the answer.
Yes.
Here's the question. How was the ticket paid for? Cash, check, credit card, or some other way?
At this moment, I can say it was cash because we didn't accept any other kind of payments.
Any follow-up, Mr. Ramuno?
No, thank you.
Any follow-up, Mr. Victor?
No, Judge, thank you.
Any other questions from the jury? Doesn't look like it. May this witness be excused, Mr. Ramuno?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Victor?
Yes, Judge, thank you.
Mr. Chavez, you may step down. Thank you. Be seated, everyone. We're outside the presence of the jury. One of the reasons we started late this morning was counsel and I were discussing a potential evidentiary issue relating to how much of certain MySpace messages can come in to evidence. The state was intending on introducing at least a portion, I think mainly statements made by Mr. McQuarrie. The defense wants statements made by Ms. Johnson, and there's a discussion about whether those statements are admissible. I think the state's intending on admitting those statements through which detective? Thompson. Detective Thompson. I directed the parties to talk about it and see if we can come to an agreement on whether certain statements come in. If you can't, then I'll resolve it. I'm a little hesitant in terms of how we're going to do it and when, because it may require some argument, which means keeping the jury waiting. If that happens, it happens. I'd love for you to be able to resolve it. We talked about it off the record and talked about some of the issues. So if you can resolve it, great. If you can't, what I'd like you to do is come back about 20 to 25 after 1, and let's see if we can either resolve it or how we're going to handle it in terms of the jury waiting and when Detective Thompson was going to testify. Anything else we need to talk about from the state's perspective before we break for lunch?
No.
Anything from defendant's perspective?
No, Judge.
All right, I'll see you after lunch. We're outside the presence of the jury. We're back on the record. A couple issues to talk about. Counsel have been very diligent about working together to eliminate portions of recordings that are going to be played for the jury, and so we've worked through a lot of those issues. One of the issues that just popped up is a recording that's going to be played for the jury in part of a telephone call with Channel 5 with Ms. Johnson participating, Tammy Smith participating, Jack Smith participating, and a reporter participating. We agreed to redact certain portions. Counsel have realized that a part that was supposed to be redacted has snuck its way in, and so we need to do two things. One, we've redacted a copy of the transcript. We're giving the jury a copy of the transcript so they can follow along. So we've redacted, and what I'm going to ask to do is, Kim, can you let ask Katie to come down and make 21 copies of this, because we got to make new copies and keep a track of the original, because you can read through the original, but you can't read through the copy. So we'll give those to the jury, and then when we play the recording, we need to make sure that this doesn't sneak its way in. Counsel's aware of what it is. Fortunately, it's right at the beginning, so we can start after this portion, and we shouldn't have an issue with the jury. I'm going to tell the jury not to worry about choppiness in recordings, because we always end up taking portions out, so that's why it's going to be choppy going forward in this and other recordings. So that's one issue that we've tackled. The other issue is relating to whether the content of certain Facebook pages is presented to the jury, and we have agreement between counsel on some portions that can come in and some that can't. And so we've redacted that, I think, already, and when it's presented to the jury, what they will be presented with is the agreed upon portions. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, and because the exhibit was 122, it was already marked in evidence. We just need to put on the record, but between the parties and the court, that we agree that we've switched out what's in Exhibit 122 after it's been marked.
Okay, so it's clear. 122 was marked. We've now switched out a new 122. That's correct, Mr. Victor?
That's right.
We're doing the same thing with another recording. Do you know what exhibit number that is?
The one we're going to do that, it's already been admitted, and I have to check the exhibit number.
Okay,
That's not going to be admitted today. That'll be tomorrow.
All right.
And the one that we're talking about now, the recording that is going to be played, the one that you have the transcript in your hand, that's Exhibit 116. So we're not going to admit that recording today, but we are going to publish it, and then we're going to redact it and admit the redacted version.
Okay, got it. And then one last thing before the jury comes in, we're going to be hearing from Detective, is it McClure or McLean? McClure? McCluskey? Are you calling him today? It's Detective McCluskey.
Yes, we're going to hear from him today, but not first.
Okay. So I don't forget, the media's been instructed that as to Detective McCluskey, not only can we not show his face, we can't broadcast his voice. I've also made it clear that I'm fine with it being not distributed because of that from In Session's perspective, and I appreciate you asking. All right, so why don't you, we need to make sure that this gets taken care of, and if Katie can do it, that's great. Okay. 21, and that's right, and keep the original separated, but we need 21 copies. Okay, and then we can go get the jury. We'll be ready. And Ms. Ramuno, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Will you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, my name is Hector Morales. I'm a special agent of the FBI in San Antonio, Texas.
And how long have you been employed with the FBI?
I've been a special agent for 9 years.
And do you have any special assignment within the agency?
Currently, I'm assigned to investigate counterintelligence matters, national security matters.
And have you had any previous assignments to that?
I did. Previous to my current assignment, for over 6 years, I was assigned to investigate violent crimes.
I'm going to draw your attention to the month of December 2009. What position were you in at that time with the FBI?
At that time, I was assigned to the violent crimes squad.
And did you have any previous experience in child crimes?
I had previous experience, yes. I've received training as a coordinator, as a collateral duty, as a special agent for the National Center for Analysis of Violent Crime.
And what does a coordinator do?
The coordinator's position essentially is to facilitate FBI headquarters and local police departments, state police departments, other federal agencies in investigating serial murders, serial rapes, kidnappings, other bizarre crimes. And I'm basically the middleman, make sure that I put the two entities in touch with each other.
And obviously other persons within the Federal Bureau of Investigations knew that you held that position?
Yes, ma'am.
And would sometimes other agents call you for help during their investigations?
They would.
All right. Specifically in the month of December of 2009, were you asked for help in an investigation involving a missing child by the name of Gabriel Johnson?
I was.
And can you tell us how you became involved initially?
I received a call from another special agent out of the Phoenix Division of the FBI. He requested assistance from our office, the San Antonio office, to go visit a retail store where it was believed Elizabeth Johnson and Gabriel Johnson may have been located. At the time, I was on vacation in Miami, Florida, so I did not go out on that lead, but I did contact my supervisor of my squad and apprised him of the situation and passed on any information I received from the agent here in Phoenix, Arizona, to my supervisor, who then dispersed the information to other squad mates of mine in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay. And the special agent that contacted you, was that someone by the name of Mike Conrad?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And your supervisor at the time, what was his name?
His name is Luis Chavez.
Can you spell that last name, please?
Yes. The last name is spelled C-A-R-R-I-L-L-O.
And did you, in fact, contact your supervisor and pass along that information at that time?
I did.
Now, do you recall the date that you received this initial call?
My recollection is December 30th of 2009.
And you just happened to be in Miami, Florida at that time, correct?
I was on vacation.
All right. Now, did you receive further information about this investigation later?
I did. Upon my return to the San Antonio Division, the investigation into trying to determine the whereabouts of Gabriel Johnson was continuing by other squad mates of mine in San Antonio. And on one occasion, we were given instructions by our squad supervisor to locate a babysitter that was believed to have babysat Gabriel Johnson. And so I and another squad mates and several other squad mates went out to locate this individual in the southern part of San Antonio, Texas.
All right, and was this a babysitter by the name of Analise Urias?
That's correct.
All right. And what information did you have about her at that time?
The information we had was that she apparently had been, or some information came in that she babysat Gabriel Johnson. And so we wanted to go ahead and the lead was to go ahead and see if we could make contact with her, interview her about that, and glean any information we could that might lead to the whereabouts of Gabriel Johnson.
And did she live in the San Antonio area still at that time?
She did.
All right. And were you able to make contact with her initially?
On that occasion, no.
All right. And how was that?
We visited the address that we had for the babysitter, spoke to some individuals in the home, but she was not present. And the individuals we spoke to could not give us or provide us a way to contact her. So we left the business card, asked that as soon as contact was made with the babysitter to please contact us because we needed to speak to her.
Okay. And when you say we, who was with you?
Other special agents of my squad.
All right. And after leaving the location that day, did you make any other efforts to find her yourself?
I did not.
Okay. But did other members of your team?
Yes, they did.
And eventually she was located, correct?
Yes.
Now, during the time that you were going to find Annalisa, did you make any observations as you were driving there?
Yes, we did.
And what was that?
I was driving with a squad mate of mine, and as we were heading down to the location where we believed the babysitter to reside, we noticed a bus station on the left side of the highway as we were heading towards the address. And my squad mates mentioned, we had some information that Miss Johnson had left San Antonio on a bus, and we thought this might be a good place just to visit and see if we could get any information regarding Elizabeth Johnson and Gabriel Johnson.
And what highway was this located off of?
My recollection is Interstate 37 South.
And at some point, did you in fact go to that location?
We did. After failing to make contact with the babysitter at her residence, on the way back to our office, we stopped at the bus station.
Okay, and was the name of this bus station the Tornado Bus Company?
Yes.
All right. And when you stopped at that location, what happened?
My partner and I walked into the bus station, and we spoke to a proprietor there and inquired about if they had seen Elizabeth Johnson, perhaps with her child, at this bus station. My recollection is that we had a flyer of some sort that I believe depicted Elizabeth Johnson and a vehicle similar to what we believe she was driving. And that was shown to the gentleman at the bus station. And my recollection is that this individual told my partner that he had in fact seen Elizabeth Johnson. And from there we proceeded to ask additional questions. We asked for any records that might verify that. We asked for video, and we eventually did obtain that.
Okay. And was this person that you spoke with an individual by the name of Luis Chavez?
Yes.
May I approach the exhibit table?
You may.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm showing you exhibits 132 and 133. Are these the documents that you received from Mr. Chavez?
Yes.
Thank you. And you indicated that you also obtained video?
Yes.
And can you tell us about that?
The video was a video cassette tape, and it depicted on that day several camera angles of the passengers at the bus station, outside the bus station, and the buses that would pull into essentially what appears to be two carports The bus would pull into those carports, and the passengers that were waiting for that bus would board the bus and head out of there.
And did you, when you viewed that video, were you able to find anything of evidentiary value?
No, I was not.
Now, I'm going to back up just a little bit. When you were at Annalisa's house earlier, prior to going to the bus station, did you search the home to see if the child was there or any evidence of the child being there?
We did.
Okay, and were you able to find any evidence of that nature?
We did not.
Now, after you visited the Tornado Bus Company, did you receive information about the possible vehicle that Elizabeth Johnson may have been driving?
I did.
Okay, and can you tell us about that?
While at the bus station, while my partner was speaking to the proprietor of the bus station, I received a call from Special Agent Michael Conrad, and he asked me if there was a Motel 6 in the area. I responded that yes, there was, because I knew from just previous investigations that on other matters that I had conducted that there was a Motel 6. But I said I needed to walk out to make sure. So I did. I left the bus station. I walked outside, and parallel to the bus station was there a Motel 6. And at that time, Agent Conrad informed me that he was receiving information that the vehicle might be at that location. So I proceeded to walk from the bus station over to the Motel 6 to see if I could locate the vehicle. From the bus station to the Motel 6, there is a privacy fence, so I initially did not see it. But as I walked over there and turned the corner around that wooden privacy fence, I saw a vehicle that matched the description of the vehicle we believe to belong to Elizabeth Johnson. And I walked towards the vehicle, and based on some of the information I had, I believe I had a license plate or something to that effect, identified that as the vehicle belonging to Elizabeth Johnson and advised Special Agent Conrad as such.
And was this a white Oldsmobile Delta 88 from 1995?
It was a white vehicle, but I don't remember the make or model.
Okay. But you had identifying information from Special Agent Conrad as to the specificities of the vehicle?
Yes.
And that vehicle you found in that Motel 6 parking lot matched it exactly to the description that you had?
It did.
Okay. What did you do at that point?
At that point, I contacted my supervisor and advised him that we had located the vehicle. I advised my partner that we had located the vehicle. And at that point, we had additional agents from the office come out to start looking at the vehicle, photograph the vehicle for eventual processing. We were going to process the vehicle.
And were you there for that process?
I was there for the photography that was taken of the vehicle in place, but of the actual search of the vehicle, which occurred at a later date, no, I was not.
Okay. Did you do anything further at that scene?
At that scene, I did go in and spoke to whoever was on duty there at the hotel, and I asked if they had recognized Elizabeth Johnson, if they had recognized Gabriel Johnson. My recollection is that they did not. I asked if they had video that we could obtain of the premises, and they advised yes, and we did, in fact, obtain video from that premise as well.
All right. And what did that video depict?
When I viewed it at a later time, it did show the vehicle at the location. On this video, I'm able to observe the vehicle pulling into the parking spot there at the Motel 6. I'm not able to make the vehicle out clearly, but I could tell it was the vehicle. Could not make out the driver. The windows appeared to be up. The vehicle was parked there, it seemed, for quite some time before someone exited the vehicle, closed the door, from the driver's side, I should say, walked to the back of the vehicle, appeared to open the trunk, was there for a little bit, shut the trunk, and then walked in the direction of the Tornado bus station.
Okay. And this surveillance video that you viewed, is it one of those that's from far away in a parking lot?
It's from a camera on the hotel building that has a shot towards the vehicle. The camera angle was towards the driver's side of the vehicle.
And were you able to obtain any other surveillance video of that area?
No, my only recollection is a video from the bus company and from the Motel 6.
And the video that you observed from the Motel 6, is it the car that you saw, is it in the time frame of when other information in the case indicates Elizabeth Johnson had gone to the Tornado Bus Company?
It was.
After your contact with the Motel 6, did you have contact with any other hotels or motels?
Did have contact with the Home Gate Suites, which is where Ms. Johnson and Gabriel Johnson were staying during their stay in San Antonio.
Okay. And how did you come about gathering that information?
That's from other agents on my squad, from Special Agent Mike Conrad. They mentioned that this was the hotel that she was staying at.
Right. And did you do anything specifically at that location?
I did go to that location and walked around the premises to try to determine if there was any information of lead value that might lead to the whereabouts of Gabriel Johnson and Elizabeth Johnson, and noticed that there is across the street from the hotel a business establishment that has cameras all over the building that seemed to point in the direction of the Motel 6. So went to that establishment, and in fact they do have video in that establishment that overlooks the motel where Elizabeth Johnson and Gabriel Johnson were stayed during their time in San Antonio.
And what did you do then?
At that point, we requested video from that establishment, and we reviewed it to see if we can determine if we could catch a glimpse or an image of Elizabeth Johnson and Gabriel Johnson on the cameras, which I did not. I did was able to see Elizabeth Johnson's vehicle on one of the cameras from that facility.
And what did that depict?
The image shows a vehicle matching the description of Elizabeth Johnson's vehicle, leaving the vicinity of the room where she was staying at during her stay in San Antonio, cross in front of the camera, and then out of view, and then other camera angles from other cameras show the vehicle heading towards Fredericksburg Road, which is parallel to Interstate 10, and the vehicle heading in that direction of I-10.
And was this on the date of December 27th, 2009?
My recollection is that it was on the Sunday that Ms. Johnson left San Antonio.
Now, were you able to obtain any other surveillance video that depicted Elizabeth Johnson?
Yes, I was able to obtain two video surveillance footage of Elizabeth Johnson. One showed Elizabeth Johnson in a liquor store, I believe on December 22nd. She's buying, it appears, a bottle of liquor from this particular store or liquor store, and she's by herself.
Okay. And the other video?
The other video is of the Ross department store on the date that she left San Antonio. And again, Elizabeth Johnson is by herself, and she is purchasing what appears to be a backpack.
And you indicated that she was by herself in that store?
Yes.
Now, did you go back to the Homegate Motel or Hotel and speak with any of the staff there?
I spoke to members of housekeeping, and on one of those occasions they provided me with the abandoned property, as they called it, of Elizabeth Johnson from the room she stayed in.
All right. And do you recall what type of property was left in that room?
It was miscellaneous. It appeared to have adult clothing, children clothing. I think there were some picture frames in that abandoned property. I remember some, like a baby pacifier, perhaps some medicine bottles that appear to be for an infant or a child, items of that nature.
And were you able to review the items that were found, that were located in the car that she had abandoned at the Motel 6?
When I initially found the vehicle, I saw some of the items in the vehicle, and then later on, once the search was conducted by other members of personnel in the FBI building, saw the items that were collected.
Okay. And when you first observed the vehicle, what were the items that you saw yourself?
I recall seeing a purse on the ground of the passenger side, front passenger side. I recall seeing what appeared to me to be a baby car seat, diapers, I believe baby powder, clothing, papers, items of that nature.
And were there also receipts found in the car?
It's my understanding they were, yes.
Okay. Particularly a Jack-in-the-Box receipt?
Yes, I do recall that being written in one of the reports.
Okay. And a Ross receipt dated 12/27/09?
Yes.
Right. Was there also a brownish red colored journal found on the front passenger floorboard?
Yes, I know a journal was found, but where in the vehicle, I don't know.
Okay. And was there a wallet containing credit cards, change, also found?
I do have a vague recollection of that, yes.
Okay. Was there a notebook with handwritten notes?
Yes, there was.
Okay. A Homegate Studios hotel receipt dated December 20th, 2009 to December 27th, 2009?
I don't recall seeing it myself, but if it's on the report, then yes, those are items that are found. What's itemized in the report are the items that are found in the particular search area.
Have you had an opportunity to review the evidence recovery log in this case?
I have not. Not recently.
But at some point during your investigation, did you review the items that were found in the car?
I did.
Okay. And if they're indicated on the evidence recovery log, they were found at that time, correct?
Correct.
Was there a newborn screening collection kit found?
I don't have any recollection of that.
Okay. Is there anything that would refresh your memory as to what was found in the vehicle?
Probably the logs that were, written at that day.
Okay. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Does that refresh your memory?
It does.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
You may.
Was there a newborn screening kit found?
That is the one item that I don't recall seeing. I don't have recollection of that item.
All right. There was also diapers, bottles, baby food, baby spoon.
Yes, I do recall those items.
Okay, a wine bottle opener, a baby blanket.
Yes.
Bibs, as well as 7 photo frames with pictures in them.
Yes, I do recall that.
And was there also a tote found with a passport inside?
I have a recollection of the tote. I don't remember the passport.
Okay. Social Security card and other legal pads with writing and papers, a monthly planner.
I do recall those items.
Okay. Now, while you were conducting your part of the investigation, I know you've mentioned that there were other FBI agents involved. What other FBI agents were involved that you are aware of?
Are you asking for their names?
Yes.
Special Agent Kevin Plaisance, Special Agent Fernando Gutierrez, Special Agent Sergio Borrego, many members of my squad.
Okay. And these are all individuals that are part of the team located in San Antonio, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Now, did you also work with the San Antonio Police Department during this investigation?
I did.
All right. And what did you do in connection with the San Antonio Police Department?
I attended interviews with Detective Salome, who was the lead detective on this case. Spoke to different people, went to different retail stores, trying to uncover information of lead value that might lead us to the whereabouts of Gabriel Johnson and Elizabeth Johnson.
Okay, and there's an exchange of information that's going on among all the agencies during this time, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I have no further questions. Oh, actually, when you located the car in the Motel 6 parking lot, what was the physical condition of the car? What observations did you make about it?
My recollection is the vehicle had the driver's side window was down. The key to the vehicle were in the car. And I have a recollection that the passenger side window in the front cabin may have been down as well. The vehicle appeared to be clean, almost as if it had been washed. But other than that, it appeared to be in good condition.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Cross-examination?
No questions, Judge.
Okay. Does the jury have any questions for Special Agent Morales before we let him go? Doesn't look like it. May this witness be excused, Ms. Romano?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Mr. Victor?
Yes, Judge.
You may step down. Thank you.